How do you read this kanji? Umi. What about this one? Mizu. Put them together? Kaisui. Why do the readings change? Let's find out. What's up, Japan enthusiasts? 皆さんこんにちは. I'm Max. Welcome back to my channel where we dive into the world of Nihongo and Japanese culture. So today's topic is how to read kanji. If you're already learning Japanese, you probably know kanji, right? And you probably know that kanji has Onyomi and Kunyomi. On reading or kun reading. So what's the difference between Onyomi and Kunyomi? Let's get into it. Simply put, Onyomi is Chinese reading and Kunyomi is Japanese reading. So why do we even have Chinese reading even though we are speaking Japanese, right? Well, that goes back to a long time ago when kanji was brought to Japan from China. So at that time, kanji only had Chinese reading because kanji was the writing system that was developed in China to describe the Chinese language. Japanese people didn't have any reading system for those letters that were brought to Japan, so they were trying to listen to how Chinese people were reading each letter, and that became Onyomi, Chinese reading. For example, this kanji, umi, well, Onyomi is kai, so Japanese people heard kai when Chinese people were reading this kanji. Japanese people are thinking, what does this kanji mean? What does this kanji mean? They were pointing at the ocean and they're saying kai and they're using this letter. Oh, that's umi. Oh, that's umi. Alright, so this kanji means umi. Alright, then we are gonna read it umi instead of kai. That's the Japanese reading, kunyomi, umi. Because umi, the word umi, already existed in the Japanese language before kanji was brought in. Japanese people started distinguishing the difference between the readings kai and umi as onyomi and kunyomi. So yeah, basically Japanese people wanted to use the kanji system that was brought in. We developed the kunyomi, so that kanji is so much more useful for speaking Japanese and writing Japanese. Basically, Kunyomi is like a Japanese translation of the kanji. So some kanji have more than one readings because you can't simply translate some things in another language with just one translation. So if there's more than one translation for that kanji, then we have more than one Kunyomi. For example, this kanji's Onyomi is ho or hu, but Kunyomi we have aruku and ayumu. Aruku and ayumu, they both mean to walk. Some Japanese people want to say aruku. Other people might want to say ayumu when they want to say to walk. And now that we know the difference between Onyomi and Kunyomi and why there's Onyomi and Kunyomi, let's get into how we distinguish the readings, like how we know when to use Onyomi and when to use Kunyomi, and also how we know if this reading is Onyomi and this reading is Kunyomi. But before we get into those methods to distinguish Onyomi and Kunyomi, let's be clear that these rules, these methods don't cover it all. So there are, of course, some exceptions. For those exceptions, you just have to memorize them. But these methods will cover a lot of it. So let's get into it. So the first way to know if it's Onyomi or Kunyomi is if that reading already makes sense in Japanese. So for example, I said aruku, ho. If you only say ho, it doesn't make sense in the Japanese language. There's no word, just ho. But there's a word, aruku. If you read this kanji as aruku, then that's kunyomi. And if it's read as ho, then that's onyomi. Because aruku makes sense in Japanese and ho doesn't make sense in Japanese just on its own. And another example is this kanji. Do you read it shin? Do you read it mori? If you read it shin, we don't know what kanji you're talking about because there's so many more kanji that can be read shin, like this many. But if you say mori, then we know what kanji you're talking about. Mori already exists, that word already exists in Japanese. Mori, forest, exists in Japanese. But if you say shin, there are too many. So if that reading is already a word in Japanese, then that's kunyomi. And the next way is if that reading needs okurigana. Okurigana is the hiragana that goes after the kanji to make a word. For example, this kanji, taberu, taberu. This kanji needs the hiragana beru to make a word, taberu. This is kunyomi because taberu is a word in Japanese and it has okurigana, those hiragana after the kanji to make a word. This kanji's onyomi is shoku. Shoku. This kanji's onyomi, shoku, can be used to read other kanjis like this. Even if you say shoku, it doesn't make sense, right? But if you say taberu and add beru, the okurigana, then that makes sense. And that's kunyomi, so Japanese reading. And the next way to know if it's onyomi or kunyomi is by the number of letters when you read it. If the reading has 4 or more letters, then that's kunyomi. But if it's 3 letters or less, that could be onyomi. But of course, there are many kunyomi that have 3 or less letters. But if it's 4 or more letters for the reading, then that's absolutely kunyomi. For example, this kanji's kunyomi is oyake. Oyake. Oyake is the kunyomi because it has 4 letters and it makes sense in Japanese. Oyake means public. And ko is 2 letters and it doesn't make sense in Japanese by itself. So that's onyomi. So if it's 4 letters or more for that reading, then that's kunyomi. 3 letters or less than 3 letters, then that could be onyomi. And the next method is actually gonna help you a lot. It is this method. Unchiku kitsui. Unchiku kitsui. Alright, so what does it even have to do with onyomi and kunyomi? If that reading consists of 2 syllables, and if the second syllable is either u, n, chi, ku, ki, tsu, i, then that is onyomi. The second syllable, so the last syllable, because I'm talking specifically about the reading with only 2 syllables. So the second syllable, the last syllable, is one of these. Then that's onyomi. Of course, there are exceptions. There are some kanji that have kunyomi with 2 syllables and the second syllable ends with one of these. But a lot of times, this rule is correct. So for example, the kanji I showed earlier, mori, this kanji's onyomi was, yes, shin. And the first syllable of the onyomi is shi. And the second syllable, the last syllable, is unchiku kitsui. Unchiku kitsui. So if you ever have a test or quiz about is this onyomi, is this kunyomi, then you can use this method, unchiku kitsui, and then you know if it's onyomi or kunyomi pretty easily. So another example is this kanji I showed you earlier. Umi, that's kunyomi. Kai, that's onyomi. And the first syllable, ka. The second syllable, i. Unchiku kitsui. That's onyomi. Right? It's pretty easy. But if you combine all these methods that I showed you in this video, you're gonna be able to distinguish onyomi and kunyomi. And when you make nijijukugo, yojijukugo, which is 2-letter word, 4-letter words, the reading of the kanjis, it's usually onyomi. So for example, kaisui, kaisui, umi, and mizu. This is a word. 海水 is a word, seawater. Those two kanji, they use onyomi to form this word. And another example is shinrin, mori, and hayashi. Mori is forest, hayashi is woods. Put them together, shinrin, shin, and rin. They are both onyomi because it's two kanjis, put them together. And by knowing the difference between onyomi and kunyomi, you're gonna learn kanji so much better. You're gonna be able to memorize kanji more easily because you know the difference between onyomi and kunyomi, and when you use onyomi and kunyomi, if you know all these rules, you know which readings are onyomi and which readings could be kunyomi. And when you form words using that kanji with other kanji, you could probably kind of guess how you read it because you know how to use onyomi and kunyomi. And when it's like two kanji, put them together, it's usually, yes, onyomi. Alright, so that's it for today's video. To sum it up, kanji has two different reading systems, onyomi and kunyomi. And onyomi is Chinese reading, kunyomi is Japanese reading, and you can know if it's onyomi or kunyomi by these rules that I showed you. And if you like this video, please hit the like and leave a comment below if you have any questions or any requests for future videos. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, Max Japanese, please subscribe and see you in the next one. Bye! Whoa, before you watch the next video, please let me promote my shodo art products. I have all the cool stuff on Redbubble, and you can find a bunch of different products like shirts, bags, stickers with my shodo art designs. So check out the link below in the description, and your support helps me continue creating and sharing my passion with you. And if you have a request for a certain word or certain kanji, please let me know and I can do that one for you. Thank you. Bye.